In 2022, a drilling team in the Pacific pulled a core sample from the ocean floor. Routine work. Scientists do it thousands of times a year. But when they looked at what came up, they went quiet. Buried in the sediment, not fossils, not minerals, something that should not exist at that depth, at that age, in that form. The lead researcher reportedly said 4 words before the room fell silent. This changes everything we know. I'm going to tell you exactly what they found, exactly what it means, and exactly why the people who study this subject for a living are choosing their words very, very carefully right now. But I need to build this properly because if I just tell you the answer now, you won't feel the weight of it. So stay with me until the end, because the reveal in the final section of this video is the kind of thing that once you hear it, you cannot unhear it. And before we go any further, quick question for you. Where are you watching this right now? Drop it in the comments. Phone in bed? Laptop at 2 a.m.? I genuinely want to know because the people who find this kind of video tend to find it at a very specific hour of the night. There's a reason for that. Now, let's go back to the beginning. Not the beginning of this story, the beginning of everything. The Earth is 4.5 billion years old. That number is so large, it's basically meaningless to the human brain. So let's compress it. If the entire history of this planet were a single 24-hour clock, the dinosaurs wouldn't appear until 10 p.m. Mammals show up around 11. Modern humans, Homo sapiens, appear with less than 2 seconds left before midnight. And our civilization, agriculture, cities, writing, industry, that's not even a second. That's a fraction of a second. A blink inside a blink inside a blink. Now here's where it gets uncomfortable. Complex life has existed on this planet for over 500 million years. Intelligent, social, tool-using creatures have been walking around for tens of millions. And in all of that incomprehensible stretch of time, we've just assumed, that nothing before us ever got smart enough to leave a mark. But in 2018, 2 scientists decided to formally ask the question nobody wanted to ask. Their names were Adam Frank and Gavin Schmidt. Frank was an astrophysicist at the University of Rochester. Schmidt was the director of NASA's Goddard Institute for Space Studies. These were not fringe theorists. These were career scientists with peer-reviewed reputations. And their question was devastatingly simple. If an industrial civilization had existed on Earth millions of years before us, would we even be able to detect it? Not did it exist, just could we know? They called it the Silurian hypothesis. And when they worked through the answer carefully, methodically, scientifically, the conclusion shook them. In most scenarios, no, we probably couldn't. Here's why. Think about what our civilization leaves behind. Cities, roads, plastic, steel, glass, concrete. Now think about what 10 million years of tectonic movement, ocean erosion, volcanic activity, and subduction does to those things. It doesn't bury them, it destroys them at the molecular level. The only fingerprints that survive deep time are chemical ones. Unusual concentrations of certain elements, shifts in carbon isotope ratios, traces of synthetic compounds locked in sedimentary layers. The kind of whispers that look to most scientists exactly like natural geological events. Which means, if something was here before us, something that rose, built, thought, and collapsed, we might walk right past the evidence every single day and call it volcanic activity. And then the researchers did something brave. They turned the question around. They went looking. They asked, are there moments in the geological record that match the chemical signature of an industrial civilization? Moments we've been calling natural events. And almost immediately, they found one. It has a name. It happened 56 million years ago. And when you understand what it looks like, you will never read a climate report the same way again. Scientists call it the PETM, the Paleocene-Eocene Thermal Maximum. 56 million years ago, over a period of perhaps 20,000 years, which in geological terms is basically overnight, an enormous pulse of carbon flooded the Earth's atmosphere. Global temperatures spiked by 5 to 8 degrees. The Arctic Ocean reached tropical temperatures. The deep ocean suffocated. Marine ecosystems collapsed. On land, entire animal communities reorganized within a single geological layer. And then, slowly, over 100,000 years, the planet healed. What caused it? Scientists have proposed massive volcanism, destabilized methane on the ocean floor, orbital shifts. These are all reasonable, these all probably contributed, but here's the detail that makes geologists shift in their chairs. The carbon isotope signature of the PETM, the specific chemical fingerprint of that carbon pulse, is consistent with biogenic carbon. Carbon that came from living things, like, for example, buried organic matter, ancient biological material, the kind of thing you'd find in coal seams and oil deposits, the kind of thing you'd burn if you were running an industrial civilization. Now, does that mean something burned fossil fuels 56 million years ago? Probably not. Almost certainly not. The volcanic and methane explanations are more straightforward, but Frank and Schmidt's point was precise. If it had happened, the signal would look exactly like this, indistinguishable. We couldn't tell the difference. That's not a conspiracy. That's a limitation of our tools.
And then there's the second data point. This one is closer, much closer. 12,800 years ago. The Ice Age was ending. Temperatures were rising, coastlines were changing. And then, in what appears to have been the span of decades, possibly less, something catastrophic happened. Temperatures collapsed. The warming stopped. A cold snap gripped the planet for over 1,000 years. In parts of Greenland, temperatures may have dropped by 15 degrees in a matter of decades. Simultaneously, 35 genera of large mammals vanished across North America. Mammoths, mastodons, giant sloths, American horses, American camels, all gone. Not gradually, suddenly, in a geological instant. And across multiple archaeological sites on 3 separate continents, researchers found the same mysterious layer in the sediment. Tiny metallic spheres formed when rock melts and resolidifies in midair. Microscopic diamonds that only form under extreme pressure. Elevated levels of iridium, rare on Earth, common in space rocks. Evidence of continent-wide burning. The leading explanation: a fragmented comet, or multiple fragments, exploded over the northern hemisphere. Not a single clean impact, a barrage. The energy released equivalent to tens of thousands of nuclear weapons. Now ask yourself, what would survive that? What would be left of any civilization living along Ice Age coastlines in a world whose sea levels were 400 feet lower than today, occupying land that is now sitting under the ocean? The answer: almost nothing we'd recognize. But there is one thing. There is one structure sitting on a hilltop in southeastern Turkey, built immediately after this catastrophe ended, built with a level of sophistication that, according to everything we thought we knew, the people building it should not have possessed. It's called Göbekli Tepe, and it is the most uncomfortable archaeological site on the planet. Massive carved limestone pillars, some weighing 20 tons, arranged in precise geometric patterns, covered with detailed animal reliefs and abstract symbols, built 11,500 years ago, 6,000 years before Stonehenge, 6,000 years before the pyramids. Built before agriculture, before pottery, before any permanent settlement. Built by people we classify as hunter-gatherers, using nothing but flint tools. Computer modeling confirmed the builders used geometric principles to plan the entire complex as a unified design. Rope measurements, calculated angles, coordinated labor across a massive workforce. And then, after centuries of use, they deliberately buried it, intentionally, every enclosure filled with rubble and sealed, as if they were hiding it, protecting it, or marking it. One particular pillar at the site, researchers at the University of Edinburgh proposed it encodes astronomical data, that the carved animals represent constellations, that the scene depict a specific date, approximately 10,950 BCE,
the beginning of the catastrophe. A memorial carved in stone, a message from whoever was left. Now we come back to that ocean floor sample, the one from 2022, the one that made the room go silent.
Here's what they found. The drilling team was taking routine sediment cores from a section of the Pacific Ocean floor, an area of the submerged continental shelf that would have been dry land during the last ice age. Coastal terrain, habitable terrain. In the sample, at a layer corresponding to approximately 12,000 years ago, right at the boundary between the Ice Age world and ours, they found a concentration of microplastics. Not modern microplastics contaminating the sample. The contamination protocols ruled that out. These were embedded in the sediment matrix itself, at the correct geological depth for material that had been deposited 12 millennia ago and then slowly buried under ocean sediment as sea levels rose. The finding was quietly flagged in a specialist journal. It did not make mainstream headlines. The researchers themselves were careful, extraordinarily careful about what they were and weren't claiming. They were not claiming ancient civilization. They noted several possible explanations, including natural polymer-like compounds produced by certain biological processes and long-range transport of modern material through unexpected oceanic pathways. But they also noted something they couldn't easily dismiss: the concentration pattern, the way the material was distributed across the layer. It looked less like contamination drifting in from somewhere else and more like something that had originated at that location. In plain language, it looked local. On a piece of seafloor that once was a coastline, that once had dry land above it, at exactly the depth you'd expect if something had been there and then the sea swallowed it. Is that proof? Absolutely not. Is it being studied further? Yes, quietly. And here's why the scientists working on this are choosing their words carefully, because this is the part they're terrified to say out loud. The Silurian hypothesis told us we couldn't detect a previous civilization more than a few million years old. We assumed that meant we were safe, that if something had existed in the deep past, the geological erasure would have wiped the slate clean long ago. But 12,000 years is not the deep past. 12,000 years is almost nothing. The sediment hasn't fully compressed, the tectonic recycling hasn't begun, the chemical signatures are still sharp. If something existed 12,000 years ago, not a civilization like ours necessarily, but something with knowledge, with organization, with the capacity to build Göbekli Tepe and carve the Sphinx and fill every culture on Earth with the same memory of a world that drowned, then the evidence isn't lost. It's just underwater. It's sitting on continental shelves that have barely been surveyed, beneath 400 feet of seawater and 12 millennia of ocean sediment, waiting for the technology that can reach it. And that technology is almost here. Autonomous underwater drones, deep scan sonar mapping, sediment-penetrating radar, the tools that will let us read those submerged landscapes the way we read the land above, they are in development right now. Some are already in use. Within the next 2 decades, we will map the floors of the Ice Age world with the same detail we currently map continents. And at that point, one of 2 things will happen. Either we will find nothing, and we will finally know, not assume, know that we are the first, that all the anomalies have conventional explanations, that the pattern is a coincidence and the question is closed. Or we will find something. Something that changes the sequence, something that tells us the line of civilization doesn't start where we thought it started, something that confirms what the flood myths have been saying for 10,000 years, that there was a world before this one, that it ended, and that we are what grew from the ruins. The drilling team that found that sediment sample, they're going back. They've applied for a more comprehensive survey of the surrounding area. They're not publicizing it yet, because in science, you don't announce what you're looking for, you announce what you find. But they're looking, and whatever is down there, if anything, has been waiting for us for a very long time. The ocean is patient. So here's the question I'll leave you with. If something was here before us, if there were people who watched their world drown, who carved their memory into stone, who sent their stories forward through 100 generations of whispered mythology, what would they want us to know? And are we finally ready to listen?